The first time Alina stepped into Oakview High, it felt like walking into a battlefield with no armor. Her shoes were still too white, her uniform pressed a little too perfectly, and her silence echoed through the hallways louder than any scream. She didn't talk much, not because she couldn't, but because she was tired. Tired of starting over. Tired of explaining. Tired of being the new girl for the third time in 2 years. Her family had moved constantly due to her father's military transfers, and this time it was supposed to be different. This time, her mother had said, "You'll make friends. You'll find your place." But standing in front of a classroom full of unfamiliar faces, with whispers already buzzing about her sleek jet-black hair and pale skin, Alina knew better than to expect kindness. Mrs. Graves introduced her with a smile, but that warmth quickly vanished once Alina turned to face the class. Her gaze swept over rows of bored expressions and judgmental eyes until it landed on a trio of girls sitting in the back. Macy, Tasha, and Brooke. The ruling queens of Oakview High. Their perfectly curled hair, designer bags, and glossed lips weren't just about appearance, they were weapons. And from the very first glance, Alina knew they had targeted her. The way Macy's eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting prey, and how she nudged Tasha with a smirk, said everything. Alina was about to become their next game. At first, it was subtle. Side glances, exaggerated whispers, and giggles whenever she passed by. They called her Wednesday because of her black hair and quiet demeanor. When she walked into the cafeteria, their laughter grew louder. When she passed by their lockers, she heard her name twisted into cruel jokes. But Alina kept her head down. She wasn't afraid. She was focused. Her mother had reminded her that silence can be strength. That not reacting can be power. But even steel breaks under enough pressure. The real torment began during art class. Alina loved drawing. It was her sanctuary. While others filled their pages with chaotic colors, Alina's sketches were detailed, elegant, and full of life. Mr. Leonard praised her work often, even hanging one of her charcoal portraits on the wall. That attention made the bullies furious. Especially Macy. How dare this quiet girl get more recognition than them? It wasn't long before they started sabotaging her work, spilling water on her pages, switching her brushes with ruined ones. But Alina stayed composed, pretending not to care. That only fueled their fire. Then came the day that would change everything. It was just another morning. Alina walked into class with her usual calmness, her hair cascading down her back like a waterfall. She didn't know that Macy had come prepared. Tasha had snuck a pair of scissors into her bag. Brooke had made sure to distract the teacher with fake questions. And Macy. She sat right behind Alina, her eyes gleaming with malice. As the class settled into quiet reading, Macy leaned forward with the stealth of a predator. With one swift snip, just one, she cut a lock of Alina's hair. It fluttered down to the floor like a fallen feather. The girls gasped in stifled laughter. Tasha even took out her phone, filming the moment. But Alina didn't react. Not at first. She felt something shift inside her. Not anger. Not tears. But something deeper. She reached behind and touched the uneven strands. Her hand trembled, but she didn't scream. Instead, she stood up silently. The entire class froze. Even the teacher turned in confusion. "What's going on, Alina?" Mrs. Graves asked, concerned. Alina didn't answer. She simply picked up the lock of her hair from the ground, looked Macy dead in the eyes, and then walked out of the classroom. No words. No screams. Just silence that thundered louder than anything. The room exploded into whispers. Some laughed. Others felt a chill. Macy's smile faltered, but she shook it off, pretending not to care. Alina didn't go to the bathroom to cry. She went straight to the office. Straight to the principal. And then straight home. That night, she sat in front of her mirror, scissors in hand. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. Instead, she began to cut, clean, even strokes, until her long black locks were gone. In their place, a sharp bob framed her face like armor. Her eyes, once shy and downcast, now held a fire. Not for revenge. But for something greater. The next morning, Alina returned to school. When she walked through the halls, everything felt different. Her new haircut was bold, confident. She wore a black blazer over her uniform and a quiet, unwavering smile. Students stared, some whispered, but Alina didn't flinch. She walked with purpose. She was done being prey. She entered her class and handed a sealed envelope to Mrs. Graves. Inside were screenshots, a video link, and a statement. Everything Macy and her friends had done was documented. From the haircut to the sabotage in art class. Alina had gathered it all. Quietly. Methodically. And now, it was out in the open. Mrs. Graves turned pale. The principal was called. Parents were notified. The fallout had begun. Macy and her gang tried to twist the story, cried crocodile tears, and blamed each other. But it didn't matter. The evidence was undeniable. The school suspended them for harassment and vandalism. The video went viral in the school group chat. For once, people weren't laughing at Alina, they were inspired. Shocked. Humbled. Even the bullies' closest friends started distancing themselves, realizing the truth of who they really were. But Alina wasn't done yet. There was still something she had to do. Something that would turn the pain into purpose. And what she did next would leave the entire school speechless. The halls of Oakview High buzzed with murmurs for days after the incident. Some students were shocked that Alina stood up for herself so silently, so powerfully, while others were ashamed for not speaking up when they had seen the bullying unfold. Even the teachers walked on eggshells, unsure how to address the situation without drawing attention to the fact that a quiet new girl had shaken the foundations of their well-established social hierarchy. Macy, Tasha, and Brooke, once the unchallenged rulers of the school's popularity pyramid, were now suspended and publicly disgraced. But Alina didn't take comfort in their downfall. She had never sought revenge. She was chasing something bigger, a transformation, not just for herself, but for others who suffered in silence like she had. Her short hair became a symbol. Not of loss, but of liberation. And that symbol began something no one expected. It began in art class. Mr. Leonard had quietly approached her one day and offered her a chance to lead a project, an art installation for the upcoming school talent fair, which would be visited by parents, alumni, and even local news stations. Use it to say something, Alina, he had said. Make them feel what you felt. Turn pain into power. That night, Alina stayed up sketching, planning, pouring every ounce of her experiences into something meaningful. She didn't want pity. She wanted change. And so, she designed something bold, an interactive art piece called Reflections. The core idea was a series of broken mirrors mounted on stands, each framed with student-submitted stories of bullying, cruelty, and redemption. At the center, her own hair, once long, now cut, would be woven into a sculpture of a phoenix rising from flames, symbolizing rebirth through adversity. It was risky, personal, and raw. But it felt right. Word got around quickly. Some students volunteered to help. Even those who had once ignored Alina or snickered at Macy's jokes now came forward, eager to support her project. And one by one, they shared their stories too, stories of being teased for accents, for body types, for wearing hand-me-down clothes, for being different. The bulletin board in the art room overflowed with anonymous notes, heartfelt and heavy. Alina read every one, her heart swelling with empathy. She wasn't alone, and neither were they. She worked late after school with a small team, assembling the pieces, carefully designing every element with intention. The once isolated new girl was now leading something bigger than herself. The phoenix was taking form. Then came the day of the talent fair. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as students displayed projects, sang, danced, and showcased their talents. But the moment Alina's exhibit opened, everything else seemed to fade. A crowd formed around Reflections. Parents stood in awe, reading the notes. Students gasped, some with tears, as they found their own experiences mirrored back to them in the display. At the center stood the sculpture, the phoenix of black strands and crimson feathers, rising defiantly from a base made of school-sourced recycled material, engraved with the words, "Your story doesn't end in silence." The impact was immediate and profound. News reporters covering the event asked for interviews. Teachers praised the emotional depth of the project. The school board, visibly moved, discussed creating a permanent anti-bullying curriculum inspired by the exhibit. But perhaps the most unexpected moment came when Macy returned to school after her suspension. Gone were the smug looks, the entourage, the confidence. She looked smaller somehow. Quieter. And as she stood before the Phoenix, her eyes brimmed with guilt and something that looked like understanding. She approached Alina hesitantly, the same girl she had once humiliated without mercy. I didn't realize," Macy whispered. "You didn't deserve any of that. None of you did. I was just," her voice cracked, and for once, the words failed her. Alina didn't respond right away. She looked Macy in the eye, not with hate, but with something more powerful, forgiveness. "You can still do something right now," Alina said softly. "You can change. You can help others change." Macy nodded, ashamed, but maybe ready. The ripple effect began from there. Other students who had stayed silent before now stepped forward to mentor freshmen, to start kindness campaigns, to speak out. Oakview High began to transform. The principal initiated student-led peer support groups. The PTA raised funds to build a dedicated wellness room for students struggling with emotional health. And every morning, when students walked into school, they passed the now permanent sculpture in the main hallway, Alina's Phoenix, her pain reborn into power. But Alina's story didn't just end at her school. Her video, quietly posted online by a student journalist, went viral across platforms. People from all over the world commented, teenagers, parents, teachers, sharing their stories, thanking her for her courage. Her social media filled with messages of support and admiration. She was invited to speak at local conferences, school events, and even featured on a morning news show. The girl who once walked with her head down now stood before crowds, not as a victim, but as a voice. She didn't speak loudly, but every word she said hit like thunder. And through all the applause, all the recognition, Alina remained humble. Because she knew it wasn't about being famous, it was about helping others rise from their own ashes. Her journey reminded everyone that sometimes the quietest people have the loudest stories, and the ones who've been broken can build the strongest bridges. So, when people asked her what made her finally stand up, she would simply smile and say, "When you're tired of being silenced, your soul finds a way to speak louder than the world." And that's how the new girl who had her hair cut in class became the girl who cut through a culture of cruelty, and turned it into a legacy of light.